I'm really sorry. I think it was this. And I just wanted to apologize. And then she was like, you knew I was going to handle it on my own. It's my own trigger. I totally understand. And I was like, no, I should have approached you differently. And we had like a really beautiful moment for repair. But it took me eating my own pride and being like, yeah, you fucked up a little bit. Like, that wasn't the best way to approach that. And like finding a way to be compassionate through that and not beat myself up. So like, how do you approach repair, or like when maybe you do something that might trigger somebody else, how do you approach it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think quite similar. What I know about myself is I can be really impulsive. And I act really fast. I also externally process. So a lot of whatever's going on for me is like happening in real time for everybody else to experience around me. And I know that that happens like really quickly. So I can do the same thing where I like jump ahead on something. And then like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, wait, you shouldn't be doing that right now. And then I'm like, oh shit. What I practice as well is even pausing before the repair so that I can really like reflect, because that's something I used to do as well, where I would like start over apologizing and like owning it, which was great. But like I hadn't even given myself the space to unpack it or anybody else. So sometimes then like 2 days later, I would see the whole thing and be like, whoa, like there was actually more there to learn from and grow through for everybody. But you like, because one of the other things that I can get into myself in terms of like self-responsibility is also like over responsibility. Like I'll take 100% of everybody's responsibility for everything versus being like there is an element of that is her trigger, and that's okay. And she kind of owned that, right? Which is so beautiful. And so it's like these two people, and we can take like 100% of ours or 50% of the dynamic or whatever. I don't know, like however you want to look at it, but like I can like overstep sometimes. So for me, I've practiced like giving myself just a little bit of space. It doesn't always have to be long. Like sometimes it can just be sitting for 15 minutes or half an hour, just really thinking it through and giving myself enough space before I start the repair, before I respond, because I've noticed as well in my past, my responses can be impulsive as well. But yeah, I would pretty much do the same thing. I would usually, if I realize something is unclean energy between me and that person that was public, I'll clear it with them first, and then I'll do that publicly as well. So kind of like let everyone know, like I just want to acknowledge that this is what happened. So-and-so and I have spoken directly about it and kind of cleared it or whatever. And I just want to own that as well, because that wasn't my best or something. And it's great because it gives other people permission. Like we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We're always going to get triggered. And all we can do is continue to practice and continue to like know ourselves and know when it's going to show up. But yeah, I mean, it happens to me all the time. It happened to me last Friday in my leadership meeting. I was getting stressed. I came in and very quickly fell into this frustrated energy, but I didn't quite have the awareness that I was going in with it. And so it came out in like these frustrated conversations. And afterwards I realized like, oh, like I found the cause of my frustration and I understood like what I brought into the meeting. And I just did the same thing. I just sent them all a note saying, hey, like this is where I'm actually at. Like this is why I'm frustrated, and things we talked about were valid, but I also want to own the fact that like I brought some energy in. And I think like, fuck, it takes a lot of work to be that honest with yourself about when your energy is unclean. Like what you described was like quite a subtle thing, right? Like, and it's so easy to justify, like, it's totally fine for me to ask that question to someone in my team. Like anybody in my team should be able to handle that. Like that's how someone who's like not very conscious and not aware would just look at it and be like, that was a reasonable question. Like if she gets triggered, that's her shit. But like the honest truth is like, what was my energy? Like, because there was probably a little bit of me that knew, even though it happened really fast, like there's a tiny bit of me that kind of felt this and like did this, and it was a little bit of a dig or a little bit of a push or a little bit of a whatever. Like there was that tiny bit of me that was trying to make her feel something. Like we are such clever manipulators, and manipulation is such a strong word that I think there are people that are narcissistic and manipulative, and that is horrible to be a part of. But understanding that we all use tiny little manipulation tactics when we're acting from our wounding, because the outcome we're trying to get is to stop hurting versus the outcome of like actually whatever the thing is that we might be talking about. And so to be really, really honest with ourselves of like, oh, I had a little something, a little trigger in me there. And rather than being with my trigger, I expressed something which actually like was to try to stop that feeling in me versus, you know, whatever the thing was. And it's so subtle, and it takes a lot of practice of like self-reflection all the time of like, was I in my truest, highest integrity in my energy? Was that truly a clean energy exchange with that person? And like to get to that place where you're willing to own when it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's a lot.
It's mental and emotional gymnastics, but it is, in my opinion, the only way to do it because you feel free.
It is the only way. Yeah. It's amazing. It's freeing. And obviously we get better and better at it over time. And it also offers an opportunity for growth, because if we're uncleaning our energy exchange, it's because of part of us that's still hurting, that's still wounded, that needs attention. And there is much healthier ways to attend to that than taking it out on the world around us.
And it doesn't solve anything.
Like, it doesn't solve anything. It just perpetuates. It's like you said at the very start of this podcast, it's like then your trauma is interacting with somebody else's, and it just perpetuates the same.
Thanks for watching, you guys. If you enjoyed this, click here to check out the full podcast episode. Click here to check out our full library of podcast episodes. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know when we're posting new ones. I'll see you soon.